John DeCoste in studio, reworking the Dr. Most theme song at the cost of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
You got to.
Wow. Yeah, it's very expensive.
I know. Think of the band in the back and everything.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah. The oboe player had to be fired yesterday.
Really?
Yeah. Didn't like his attitude.
Again.
Yeah, it's true.
3 strikes, you're out.
Dr. Most joins us. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
We're great.
Seems like we're talking to a lot of people with lingering colds and things. Does that make sense with all the goofy weather we're having? 80 today, 30 tomorrow?
Absolutely. You think about it, the 80 today, a lot of people are going to be out and around, so that's good. But then to go back to 30, you're all going to be back inside, talking and spreading diseases and illness. But the good thing is that flu numbers are down, COVID numbers are down. So now it's just this typical bad upper respiratory. I think the cool part from a medicine point of view is going to be with this 80, allergies, spring allergies are probably going to trigger a lot earlier than they normally have.
Yeah,
you guys have had a couple warm days here. You're going to get this 80. You're going to get some moisture. It's going to warm up again. You might start to see things start to pop a little bit earlier than what we would have seen in the past.
Let's talk measles. Is this a big problem?
Well, it is a big problem. And I don't know if you saw just recently, we just had a case in Lake County, Indiana. That individual, that child actually was at 3 different hospitals in Illinois looking for care at that time. So we might see an outbreak or we might see some cases in Illinois. The biggest case and the biggest problem, obviously, is in Florida. 9 cases at one hospital in Weston, Florida, which is right near Fort Lauderdale. And then you have a Surgeon General that just makes the biggest misstep and says to, parents, you guys decide. If your child's unvaccinated, you decide if they're going to go to school. And that's why this outbreak has just continued. And, now they have up to, I think it's either 9 or 10 cases in that one hospital. Well, if you do the math, 2 of those kids are going to end up in the hospital. And that didn't have to happen.
No, it's a bad medicine, and this guy is notorious for it.
Can you remind people, it's the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine. Is that still the same vaccine, and when are we supposed to get that?
Yep, Jane, it is. It's measles, mumps, rubella. People call it the MMR. You get it at 12 months is when you get your first, and then your second is before you go into kindergarten, so somewhere 4, 5, 6 years old. And that's probably the most important thing, Jane, is that people have to understand that this vaccine is extremely protective if everybody gets it. It works up to like 98% of the cases. But unfortunately, we're seeing so many families and so many people now asking for exemptions, whether it's religious, philosophical, or medical, that our immunization rates are not as high as they should be for kids going into public schools and, kindergarten and so on.
The ability to know that if you've had the measles vaccine, is there? You just look at us and go, "Yeah, you look like you're good"? No, you can't. And as a matter of fact, if you look into healthcare providers, we have to make sure that we've had rubella. Obviously, it's one that can be spread in the hospital setting and is very difficult. So we have to prove that we have rubella immunity, whether we show proof of vaccination or we get titers drawn. And if the titers are low, then we have to get revaccinated. So it is one where you can't tell if you've been vaccinated unless you have the records for it. The MMR vaccine, though, wasn't that mandatory to go to school when we were kids?
Yeah, I thought so.
It still is.
Yeah, but when we were kids, when we'd go to cave and we'd learn that way.
Yeah, right. But it is still mandated, but so many people are asking for exemptions and are getting them because they can find somebody who's willing to give the exemption. That's the problem.
What's the one vaccine that you got? They discontinued it, or you don't have to get it, but it left the little circle on your arm?
Well, you used to get polio shots in the arm as well, and now that's gone. Now we've gone to the oral polio, obviously, but here, I think one of the biggest things that people have to understand is kids with measles are very contagious prior to the rash. So it looks like they just have a cold. They have a cough, they have a fever, they have a runny nose, they have pink eye. The rash doesn't start for, sometimes 5, 6, 7, 10 days later. So these kids are out there around others. So if you're around more unvaccinated kids, then this is going to happen. And the bad things that can happen with measles are not good. Hearing loss, encephalitis,
bad things happen with kids with measles.
All right, and you do see symptoms before the rash breaks out?
Yes, you're going to see the cold, the cough symptoms, runny nose, pink eye, fever. I'll tell you, Steve, one of the interesting things is this was so close to being eradicated. When I was a resident at Lutheran General, and we had a kid with measles in the hospital made sure that every pediatric resident and family medicine resident went in to see that patient. Now, we obviously were gowned and gloved and everything because they said, you may never see a case of this again.
Wow.
And now, unfortunately, we're seeing more and more cases. And it's often coming from individuals outside of the country coming in during that contagious time when all they're showing is the cold and cough symptoms, and then they're spreading it.
You are in a position now where you've got a little more time than you've had in the past, but you're still a nut for this stuff, and thankfully you are because you pass it on to us, the knowledge that you gain. What's concerning you for the spring?
Concerning me in the spring?
Yeah, for the spring. I mean, as we go into the weeks of spring and eventually into the summer, you seeing a trend that you're concerned? You said allergies, but what else?
No, I think allergies is one. I think the other thing is that, and I'm not going to be an alarmist, is this time for us to take two steps back and say, what did we learn about COVID and what can we do? Because there will be another COVID. We all have to understand that. And what can we do to put things in place to make sure that we handle it better than we did the last time? It's almost like a COVID task force of what happens with the next COVID. How are we going to handle the communication? How are we going to handle the vaccinations? How are we going to handle all of that needs to be, because it was so fragmented and so much confusion. And we are changing our stories and changing our mind every day. So we lost the general public lost, a lot of confidence in not only the CDC, but in many of us. So I think we need a better game plan. And while there's not a lot going on, it'd be a great time to do it.
That's a great point.
And that's everywhere. That's businesses, CDC. It's everyone needs to come together and have, this is the plan.
Have your emergency plan.
It's not just the doctors and the scientists.
At 7:45.
And you're right. I mean, we have to go from the public health all the way down to just the doctor in his office and everything that happens in between, and get the pharmaceutical companies involved as far as, all right, if we do this, how do we get the vaccine out as quickly as possible? We did a pretty good job, but again, there was a lot of hesitancy and a lot of confusion. Oh, wait, do I get this one? Do I get this one? I got this one the first time. Can I get vaccine B tomorrow? So certainly we need to have a much better grasp on how to handle a wild world-born illness like this.
Yeah, and I would say one of the things we've learned is going forward, the government needs to say medical information and knowledge comes from a grand period of time with testing and laboratory work and all that. We don't have that. This is the best knowledge we have right now from the best minds in the business. And then you're not going to go back a year later and go, hey, Abby, you said, like a bunch of 5-year-olds. So when we come back, an aid in dying bill. If you ever thought about, should people have the right to determine when it's over? That seems to be gaining some traction. And a blood test to determine if you're going to have a heart attack or if you did have a heart attack. Look, Doc will clear all this up. Big 89 WLS. Dr. Most is with us. Any way to quantify if the influx of migrants over the border is making the measles situation pop?
Well, not to quantify it, but depending on how you talk about the influx of migrants across, individuals who enter, I don't want to say illegally, but without the proper immigration status, those are a concern. Immigrants who come into our country and are going through the normal process are screened and vaccinated at that time. So there's been no results of the studies done that shows immigrants and refugees who are coming across, they're carefully screened. What's happening is people coming to this country from a different country just flying in with a passport for here to visit. But the immigrants crossing get better screening, get vaccinated right away. Unless they have proof of vaccination, they're getting vaccinated and isolated in a proper way. So all the social media hype of this is where it's coming from, no. It's coming from the kid from France who came on a United Airlines flight and had a cold. This is not immigrants coming across where they're medically screened and vaccinated at the time and checked for vaccination status. And you guys, anybody wants to, you can go on NIH and it's all the information is right there.
So as long as you're following the protocols that are listed, the question is, can they handle all of the people they have to handle? But yeah, the social media stuff just lights more fires that are not fact-based in too many cases. Miranda?
Whatever, you can call me Miranda.
How about I call you Jane?
Okay, Jane's fine too. Andrea, Miranda, Jane, Anna, whatever you want.
You have a question about pills.
Well, okay, Dr. Morse, I know a guy. He doesn't like to take pain medication, even when he's in pain. And let's say fast forward, there's a surgery that has to happen. Talk about the importance of taking the medication prescribed by the doctor post-surgery to manage pain and the importance of that.
Yeah, Jane, and with the opioid crisis that we have right now, when people are educated about, they feel, oh my gosh, these are so highly addictive that I can't even take them. But in fact, like you just said, very important, a couple things. One is, even if it's before surgery, sometimes taking that pain medication before surgery allows you to do what we call prehabilitation. In other words, we want you to be as strong as possible going into your surgery and to be as healthy as possible. And often it's taking that pain medicine to allow you to get up and move and walk around and stay as healthy as possible. Post-surgery or post-whatever, again, sedentary lifestyle, because as we don't move, pain often won't occur, is not good for you. So even post-surgery, taking pain medications for a short period of time to get your motion up, to get you back to being active and moving is so important. So taking it as prescribed and understanding what the limitations are is very important. And always talk to your doctor, okay, I don't need the Tylenol with codeine anymore, the Vicodin anymore. Can I go down to a strong anti-inflammatory? And the doctor will have a plan for that. Now, that being said, some doctors are going to say, you know what, your back pain, it's something that's caused by inflammation, so really the pain medication. Instead, let's try steroids. Let's try a dose of steroids to see if it helps, or anti-inflammatories, or some physical therapy. So, but if I cut into you and take out your appendix, okay, you're going to be a little uncomfortable for a day or two, and for us to get you up and moving to make sure your intestines are moving again and to keep you active is very important. So taking it as prescribed is very important, and knowing when to downgrade and knowing that it's okay to take that under the doctor's recommendations.
Thank you.
Let's, and please isolate the tape. It's she's asking for a friend. This blood test for heart attack possibilities, real?
Yeah, well, it could be. So this is really interesting. In Sweden, being under socialized medicine, they're able to gather a lot of information on their individuals, their citizens that live there. So they looked at 170,000 individuals and had all this blood work done on them. What they did is they took the 420 who had heart attacks within 6 months of having that blood drawn. And what they found is there were 90 different proteins or biomarkers that were elevated or were unusual in those individuals. So now what they're really trying to do, this is kind of a preventative push here, is you have the blood test done, they tell you what your numbers are, and you come up with a predicted value. Hopefully that predicted value is high enough to scare you if you're a smoker, if you have bad diet, if you don't exercise. So they're using it as a carrot instead of a stick, I'll say, as far as, hey, you need to change the way that you're doing. Now, we do have right now, you can go on to miscore.org and put in your own data right now as far as your age, whether you smoke, what your cholesterol levels are. It'll give you a predictive value. Couple this with those blood tests, and this may be something that we're going to see at your routine annual physical to say, hey, your biomarkers are up. And some of the biomarkers are chemicals that are released by the heart when they have to work harder than they should. We know that those are there. We just don't track them normally. So it will be really interesting to see how this plays out and whether it becomes part of our routine blood testing.
Lastly, Senate Bill 3499 is called an aid in dying bill. 10 states have something similar. Illinois would be the 11th, allowing a patient with a terminal illness and 6 months or less to live to request the prescription of an aid in dying. and to die peacefully on their terms and their timing. There's several qualifiers in here which make sense. We don't know if this can get passed, but certainly the world is headed this way, right?
It really is. And it's interesting in the 10 states that it's been approved in, how much it's been used, how often it's been used, and how it's been used. So it's very interesting. You tell somebody, here's your illness, and you have 6 months to live, and they know it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be, we take better care, and I don't, hopefully nobody takes this the wrong way. We take better care of our dogs at the end of life than we do people at the end of life. Mm-hmm. So this is one where if an individual knows what's in front of them and they're of sound mind and it's their decision, they can ask the doctor for this prescription. The interesting thing is it's pills. It's a group of pills. The doctor prescribes them. You have them. And then it's your decision as to when you're going to use them. So it's interesting that we're going to put this back into the hands of the patient. So it allows them to have a great quality of life towards the end of life, to have the opportunity to say goodbye to people and do all the things that they need to do to get their affairs in order. It allows them to not suffer. And it's amazing what we put some people through at the end of life, knowing exactly what they're going to go through.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Dr. Kevin Most, great information as always. Take care of that cold of yours because, it's not our health is important, but we need you okay. So you take care of yourself. So as a matter of fact, turn your head and cough. Oh, never mind. I'm not your doctor. There you go, Dr. Most.
Thanks, Dr. Most.
Questioning whether he'll ever come on again now.
You do that every week, by the way.
I do, don't I? I should leave it on a positive note.